Hi everyone, I'm Leon Furs, and in this video I'm going to be looking at Canva's latest updates to Canva Code, which is part of their Canva AI offerings. So at the moment I'm in Canva AI. Down on the left hand side you can see the button for Canva AI, and I've gone into Canva Code and just clicked one of the stock options. Now I'm speeding up all of the coding here so that you can see very quickly how it can write code for things like this little memory card matching application, but I am going to slow down and demonstrate a couple of other options which I think are more suitable for education. So the first one here is to create an interactive 3D space exploration. We'll speed the code up there and you can see the finished product. And you can see using a combination of web code, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Canva Code is able to write some pretty interesting looking little simulations, web pages, and so on. Now, one gripe that I've got about this is that you can't actually edit any of the code that it produces. But in my experience in these most recent updates, it is quite reliable. We can take a Canva Code artifact and we can embed it directly into another Canva design. So for example, drop it into this PowerPoint or web page here, and we can make those Canva code artifacts or applications part of our existing products. So if I'm making a website in Canva, here I'm just making one of the template websites, then I can insert that little application that I've made on one of those pages. So let's do another example here, and instead of using the stock examples, I'll write one of my own. Now, under the hood, there is a GPT model being used here, probably GPT-5 at this point. Canva does have a partnership with OpenAI. So when you type in your prompt into this window in the Canva AI platform and select the code option, it's going to write that combination of HTML, web code, JavaScript, and so on following that prompt. So the prompt that I'm using here is a little different. I'm asking it to create a physics simulation of a waveform. And I just wanted to have a few adjustable controls. The simulation is made for middle school students in a combined product working with physics and music faculties. So just one of those cross-curricular STEM kinds of projects. So this prompt is reasonably complex. If you've seen any of my other videos on things like ChatGPT and Claude artifacts, this is an example that I use quite frequently because it is a little bit more complex than just asking it to create flashcards or a little mini quiz. We'll see a couple of other options shortly. So I'm going to hit send on that. I'm going to speed up the video for the code writing, and this is the finished product. So you can see we've got a few little controls. Again, I would really love the option to be able to edit the code so that I don't have to type in subsequent prompts to change everything. But this is designed for educators, most of whom aren't digital technologies educators or coders. So you can understand why that facility isn't there. It does mean that if you want to edit something, you do have to use a subsequent prompt. So in this second prompt with this example, I'm asking it to add a few more controls. It's the kinds of things that you might find on a synthesizer from 1986. It's a good year. And we'll speed up the code again. You'll see that it's in the background rewriting the existing code, and this is what it ends up with. So it's got some pretty cool visuals. I have noticed that Canva's code tends to make things with quite a Canva-y kind of aesthetic. So you're going to see lots of purple and blue gradients and soft blues and those kinds of colors. So it's obviously a GPT model with a few more custom instructions on the top from Canva. Now you can't hear it in this video because I've got the desktop sound recording turned off, but it is also making the noise of the waveform. So in my experiments with Canva, sometimes it's able to create apps that can produce little noises and waveforms. Sometimes, for some reason, it says it isn't. So it can be a little inconsistent there. In this next example, I'm going to do something a little bit more complex. Okay, starting simple, but then we're going to build on this one application or build on this idea, just so that I can show you a process of working with these types of technologies, which is quite useful. So first of all, I'm going to say create a simple web app to test a student's vocabulary for 1984. And I want it to have Orwellian style, Orwellian vibes, a 1984 aesthetic. We'll speed up the coding. And this is what we end up with. This is sort of black and red Newspeak test example. Now, again, straight away, one of the main issues, and really, look, for this product now, one of the only issues that I'm hitting regularly is that if we wanted to edit the words or the vocabulary that it's throwing out, it would be super easy, even for somebody that doesn't have any technical coding understanding, to just find the little array that contains the words and their definitions in the code and edit those directly. Okay, so for this one here, for example, we've got belly feel, word from 1984. I've got that one incorrect. The second word that comes up is sex crime. Legitimate word from 1984, but depending on what year level we're teaching in 1984, we might want to avoid or couch certain words or certain terms. This is generating them randomly from a list or an array in the actual code itself. And it would be really good if I, as the educator, could open that code up, find the vocabulary that's at play, and just edit directly. We can hit the little toggle to show the code again, and I can find that array and actually locate the words that I want to change. But if I want to change them, I do have to write a subsequent prompt, which then rewrites all of the code. So it's not a particularly efficient way of doing it. If we compare that to ChatGPT's Canvas or Gemini, Google Gemini Canvas, both confusingly called Canvas, not Canva, those modes do allow you to directly edit the code, and Claude Artifacts also allows you to highlight parts of the code and just change specific parts. So this is probably something that will become a feature in this Canva product at some point. For now, we need to write new prompts. Now, I'm going to stick with the 1984 theme in a moment. I'm going to come back to that. But before I do, I want to demonstrate a new feature which I think is really useful in Canva Code. So I'm going to ask it to create a simple application to demonstrate the new feature to store and access data. So I've given a pretty open-ended prompt here. What it does with that prompt is create this little simple note-taking app. And you can see that I can enter a title and some content. But what's interesting is that this now has permanent data storage. This is pretty unique at the moment to these kinds of products. So you can't do this with Claude Artifacts. You can't do this with ChatGPT. Okay, so this is something that does make Canva's model stand out a little bit. If I add a few notes to this little application here, so I've added 3 notes. Up at the top, you can see a little button that says data. If I click that, it's going to open up a Canva sheet. This is basically Canva's version of Google Sheets or a spreadsheet. And you can see the notes that I've added and their timestamps are actually found as rows in that spreadsheet. So if I publish this, okay, and publishing is one way to share these little code items. We can publish it to a static website, and then we can share that link with anyone on the web. We could give that to our students. We could, do whatever we want with that, really. And straight away, you can see the 3 notes that I added in the platform are already there. And that's because that spreadsheet is a permanent source of that data. The problem with that is, of course, that anyone who can access this application, so anyone with whom you share the link, can access the data. Okay, so there's no way to separate those two things. So I wouldn't use this for, creating a survey or any of those kinds of things. You're definitely going to use this with a team or a group of students where you don't mind that everybody has access to everybody's data. I've just popped it open in an incognito tab so that you can see there that it is accessible publicly. You don't need to log in or anything like that. And this spreadsheet itself can also be shared either as a view only, read only, or a public read-write link. So there's a few ways to share both the applications that you create and the data that sits behind them, but just be aware that you're not going to have private data with that. Even an incognito user not logged in on Canva can access that data if you do share it in that way. So let's take that and then apply it to something that might be a little bit more useful in the classroom. Okay, so in this example, I'm saying create an application which uses data storage to allow a class of students to add notes to an interactive pinboard. Now, I'm sure many of you watching this will be educators. You'll have used things like Padlet, like Miro boards, or maybe even a Google Jamboard, if you can remember those from a few years ago. All of those interactive whiteboard note-taking apps. And we're going to try to replicate something like that. Now, I wanted to add a few features. Okay, I'm not being specific about what features I want at this stage. I just want to kind of see what Canva, the application, comes up with. And I want to come back to that 1984 theme. So I've asked it to create this little collaborative note-taking app with some 1984 theming. So let's see what it does here. Again, of course, we'll speed up the code. It does take a little while to write these applications, but it's not any slower than the equivalent ChatGPT model in my experience. And then I'm just going to jump over to my browser window, okay, and publish this, pop it open in a new web page so that we can see the full screen version of it. Now, again, anything that is added to this platform by any of the students that you share it with can be edited and viewed by all of those students. So this is a bit of a trust exercise as well. Here, I'm just adding a few arbitrary notes, and you can see the features that it's added by itself. It's done the color scheme. It's got that red on black 1984 color scheme again. And it's got a few options for changing the themes of the notes that are being added, which actually changes the colors of the notes themselves. We can move the sticky notes around. Okay, so you can imagine a group of students working on this. It's also put a little tagline, Big Brother is watching, but so are your class rates. Share responsibly. So there's a few interesting little 1984-y features in here. I think that we could improve on this app and still make a bit more use of that spreadsheet. And one thing I'd encourage you to do is play around and experiment with this and get creative within your own subject discipline. What kinds of things can you imagine it would be useful to have stored and retrievable in a spreadsheet style database? I've popped this open in an incognito tab, again, just to show you that without signing in, I can access this board. Okay, so this particular example here, obviously I'm replicating a pretty common type of program like a Padlet. And if you're comfortable using Padlet or whatever, there's probably no reason to immediately switch to designing your own applications in Canva. But I'm sure that all of the teachers out there can think of some creative uses for this kind of platform. Now, again, it's worth pointing out that, as a student using this, I've just gone in and deleted every single note there. So there's no controls over that. So maybe when I go back, I'm going to update, add a few features, and also remove a few features. So the first thing I'm doing in the second prompt is I'm saying, make sure that there's no button to delete the notes. That means I don't want the students to be able to delete the notes. They can move them around, they can add them, but I want the teacher to be the moderator, essentially. I think the way that I would do this if I was using it in the classroom is, as the teacher, I would actually have the data spreadsheet open and just be manually keeping an eye on the data as it comes in live. And if you remove data from the spreadsheet, that should be reflected in the actual application itself, providing it's all working correctly. I've also asked it to add a couple of extra features of its choice and the ability to add images. So it'll be interesting to see how it handles images. Okay. So let's see if we can grab some images from 1984. Now, on my first attempt, I just tried to grab an image online. It's a book cover just from Amazon. And when I add the image link into the new field that it's created here, it actually doesn't work. I get a little error down in the bottom right-hand corner. It is good to see that it's got some error handling for if things go wrong. And I suspect that's just because Amazon blocks me from adding images in that way. So instead, I'm going to go to my own website. Okay, I know I can get the links to all of the images that I've used with impunity. And I'm just going to grab the link address to this picture of otters I've got here and pop that into a new note. And this time it does work. Okay, so that's a new feature on my little note-taking app. I added that with the second prompt, the ability to add images just with a URL, and that has worked as well. And again, the reason that's working is because we've got that spreadsheet in the background, and the spreadsheet is more than capable of storing an image URL alongside all of the other data. Now, it's also added this feature to be able to connect notes. You can see there when I've clicked two notes, it's added a little dotted red line between them. So again, I'd encourage you to play around and experiment. Now, just for comparison's sake, I'm going to open up Claude. Claude is particularly good at making these little web apps, artifacts, whatever you want to call them. So I'm just going to take the entire prompt that I used in Canva and put both parts of the prompt in pretty much verbatim. I'll just edit them a little so that they make sense. And I've asked it to create that application. Claude takes its time, so we'll just cut out the coding part here and see the finished product. So the finished product here, you can see it on the right-hand side. I could share this. It looks quite sophisticated. It's really got a few more features than the Canva version, but without that persistent data storage, it would actually be really difficult to share this with a class of students and have them using it in that way. So whilst it does work, and it works in this little single browser instance that I've got here, and it does have features, including the ability to upload images. I just uploaded an image from my hard drive there, so I didn't have to use it with a URL. I can move around the notes. I can do all those kinds of same things. I think aesthetically it looks a little better, but functionally, that data storage of Canva sheets actually, I think, makes it a better product for the types of uses where we're getting students interacting with these things. So I'd really encourage you to check this out. When this product was first released, I was pretty dismissive. Honestly, I didn't know why Canva was bothering to get into this whole vibe coding arena, but they've certainly worked with educators and improved these things over the past few months. So get in there, go to Canva AI, Canva Code, and check that out. Thanks.